Now that's it for this very thorough introduction to the composition API. We're going to see more of it throughout the rest of the course, but with this module you should have a first thorough idea of what the composition API is about. Well, and what is it about and why do we have it? First of all, as I emphasized many times throughout the module, it's an alternative to the Options API. You don't have to use it if you don't like it or if it just doesn't make sense for your project, but you can use it, and then you will use the setup method, which you saw, to expose logic and data to the template. And the idea behind the composition API is that it's function-based. You have all those functions you import from Vue, like ref, reactive, computed, and so on, all used in that setup method, and that this allows you to keep code that is related logically together in one place instead of splitting it across multiple options. Data and reactivity, of course, is an important concept in Vue in general, and of course therefore also in the composition API. And here we can manage data as refs, so as individual values or an object which is in a ref, or we use the reactive function to create reactive objects. I talked about the differences and how to work with these values in great depth throughout this module. Reactivity is a key concept, and one of the most important takeaways really is that you can create reactive refs or objects, but that their nested properties are not necessarily reactive, as I also emphasized throughout this module. Now, data and reactivity is a key concept, but of course not everything. We also have methods, computed, and watchers when using the Options API, and in the Composition API, methods become regular functions which you define in the setup method and which you then may expose to the template by returning it in that object which you return in the setup method. And then you also have computed properties and watchers which are defined with these imported functions which you import from the Vue framework. And now if we have a closer look at this setup function or setup method, which we define in our component config object, this setup function or this setup method is called by Vue when the component is created. And in there you define all the data and logic for this component and, most importantly, for the template. So what you return in setup is available in the template, as you learned. And setup itself also receives two arguments which are passed in automatically by Vue when it calls setup for you. And that is the reactive props object with all the props you're getting for this component, and this context object with the fall through props, those attributes, with slot data, and with this emit function which you can use for emitting a custom event.